Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, one and all. This is Rustin Edwards, live from Geneva with my illustrious co-host, Mr. Matt Stanley, and welcome to another edition of the Smoking Barrel. Good
Get it?
morning, sir.
Did you get any sleep over the weekend? I feel like, look, our editor isn't around. She's busy doing work. No, bless her, love her. So it's a bit rough and ready. But look, I would say extenuated market conditions. What's going on? So obviously, where are we? 16th of June, 11:31 in Dubai. Brent trading 74.80 up 57 cents. Friday the 13th. Yep. We had the announcement come over the wires that Israel attacked Iran, and then Iran retaliated, and that's largely we are in the middle of it now. No one really knows what's going on. Markets surged Friday, traded up to a high of 78.50 early trading, before sitting down 74. Um, yeah, you say things now because that's all the facts I can give without getting all dramatic.
Well, on top of the fact of crude oil moving up, the big surprise move is gas oil moving up even more strongly than crude oil.
Yeah.
Ice gas oil contract trading up $21 today, 705.25 per ton, which is a bit shocking that gas oil margins are that high, but there could be some good reason behind that, especially as you have the conflict in the Middle East flaming up and getting hotter as the days progress here. We're in day three or day four now of the attacks
Yeah.
and of the tit for tat with oil infrastructure being put into target. Maybe not as a primary target, but definitely being impacted by all this. And also, I think a lot of people are questioning what could be the net impact on logistic flows going forward here, which could be driving up gas oil prices, since a lot of gas oil does originate from the Middle East
Yeah.
into the European market.
Yeah. Look, I mean, exactly. I mean, the one thing that amazed me on Friday was, you usually see on average, I mean, it varies in terms of volumes, um, how much volume trades in the Brent futures market. And I think I was messaging you or maybe someone else. I mean, there was 500,000 lots traded. So 1,000 barrels in a lot. What is that? 500 million barrels? No, more than that. 500,000, 500,000 lots times 1,000 was 500 million. I'm running out of zeros on my calculator here. Yeah. 500 million barrels was traded before London woke up on Friday. And it goes to show you just, I would say, and I don't want to sort of, but there have been market events that I have certainly gone through in my career. I don't know about you over the last 25 years that I really remember. Like they really, stick out in my mind as being like where I couldn't take my eyes off the screen. And then my phone's blowing up and people are talking to me and they're kind of like, when your brain is consumed by what is happening trading wise and you're seeing the news filter through and then the market reacts, it's I don't want to say it's the wrong word. It's absorbing. Like there's nowhere else you can go. You can't leave your seat. I would say for me, right, and I'm sure you'll pick up on others, 9/11, right? 9/11 being number one. The second one, negative oil prices in April 2020 during COVID, and Russia invading Ukraine. Right? I would say to me, and then what happened Friday. So there are three other market events. What worries me is I feel like, as Israel have said, we're only just getting started. You haven't seen the worst of it yet. I feel like this benign environment we're in this morning. It's fairly benign environment, up 50 cents, 74 Brent. There's the calm before the storm. And Friday was pretty freaking chaotic. I don't know about you. I mean, I'm not saying you put it against other market events you've experienced in your career, but for me, Friday was well up there.
Well, Friday is probably one of the most dynamic ones that have happened in a long while. I mean, yeah, I mean the Russian invasion of Ukraine was probably the next big one that's happened in recent history. But we've had a lot of other, I would say events that have been just as dramatic. When you say, the Saudi price war against shale oil back in was 2014,
Yes.
um,
Yes.
that was probably another big one. when the OPEC meeting came out, and it was all, we're just going to pump all the oil we can and try to shut down this shale behemoth that blew up in the face of the Saudis
I forgot about that
or
one.
OPEC. I'm sorry, OPEC, excuse me. But nevertheless, I mean, yeah, we see the volatility in the market, but it is a bit of, I'm going to call it more tepid volatility than what you would expect when you have a major oil exporter being directly impacted by attacks from a third party. And this oil exporter, being Iran, has been very vocal in what they would do if they were ever attacked. And so
Yeah.
I think everybody's waiting for the next shoe to drop, and that's why we're not at $80. I expected to come in this morning and see market trading closer to 80 than relatively unchanged around 75 from where it closed on Friday.
Yeah. Now
And
that's an
and I only
interesting one
say that
because
because of all the rhetoric that was spoken over the weekend and the extent of the continued bombardments that are happening on both sides.
yeah, look, do you know, it's funny you say that because I was considering yesterday, when I'm sorry, I don't know what I'm doing there. Why am I taking a screenshot? I'm supposed to see. I'm all over the place, people. Like, comment, subscribe. Um, no, I was over the weekend. I was like, should I put like a sort of extraordinary commentary out? And I thought, yeah, I might do. Yeah, all right. But I think because in my mind, Brent will probably wake up on Monday morning $10 a barrel up, and then I thought, what is wrong with you? Like, how long have you been in the market now? Why would you go out there on a limb and say you think the oil markets are going to trade up here and then just for someone to turn around and go, Stanley, you're a twat because you were wrong. And woke up this morning, we're up 75 cents. We were up a bit this morning. But look, I think that's a really interesting point because over the weekend, this is something we put together. So Insights, shameless plug, don't care. Kepler put together a hashtag Israel-Iran conflict. And this is since the 12th. We've written, you can see this screen all right, can you?
Yes.
Since the 12th, we've written, what is it? 4, 8, 12, 16 articles on the subject since Thursday. These ones were pre-issue because, this had nothing had happened then. It was being factored in. I mean, we sort of said, there was some risk premium that could be priced into markets if we saw an escalation in conflict. Then, bosh, 2 hours later, we saw some attacks. JP Morgan said the same thing. They said that, they see a fairly placid, benign market, headlined by trade and tariff talks and all that. But if there's a real escalation in conflict, Brent could get to $120, $130 a barrel possibly. But it's these kind of articles here and what you just said. And this is a great article that my colleague Muyu out of Singapore, she wrote this morning. And I think this is what people need clarity on. I will bring up the map in a minute so you can see where the lie of the land is, what the Straits of Hormuz means, what it means for flows, blah, 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 blah. But to put it into semblance of order, where we are now, I agree with these four main points, right? No signs of Iranian crude export disruptions or Gulf shipping avoidance so far. Data updates may lag due to Iranian loading practices. It's probably too early to have a look at seeing if marine traffic is slowing down. We'll get to that in a moment, right? Oil prices would require additional catalysts such as broader attacks or a tangible slowdown in physical flows to break above the $75 per barrel threshold. Edwards, what's your thought on that?
I would totally agree. I mean, you need to have some type of disruption in flow because remember, okay, we've got OPEC Plus bringing out more oil from the voluntary shutdowns, and you have a lot of spare capacity sitting on the sidelines at the moment. You've got Latin America, like we talked about last week, producing more and more crude every day.
Yeah,
So there's a lot more spare capacity in the world right now to meet energy demand than you probably would have had 10 years ago if this happened. But nevertheless, I think you actually do need some type of issue that stops the flow of oil fully out of the Middle East to really get oil prices to spike. I mean,
yeah,
I don't think $120 is possible unless you have that.
I agree. And look, we'll talk about that in a moment because I think for me there is one sort of overarching fact that I want to discuss. The likelihood of Iran blocking the Straits of Hormuz remains low, given political and economic considerations. Yeah. While exploring potential alternative supplies, China's teapots remain focused on buying Iranian oil due to price advantages. For me, these are spot on as the four main takeaways. Now, I want to focus on this, right? Speaking as I do to you over the weekend, as we speak all the time, even when I'm on bloody holiday, I'll still get Edwards telling me what's going on oil markets. I do, I like it really. No, as much as I like making sandcastles, it's about what OPEC are doing that's more important. No, back to current market conditions. For me, markets were pricing in that very threat that oil would be locked in the Middle East Gulf, right? And the Straits of Hormuz and what that means. The biggest factor that's gonna you will see come out of this week, apart from an escalation in in attacks, right? If you know South Pars got hit on Saturday, which is a big gas field, and there's a refinery down there and stuff. It if an insurer what it, how sorry, thinking as I'm going. War risk premium has been a term that everyone has bandied about over the last 2 or 3 years, whether that be Black Sea, whether that be East Med, whether that be Bab el-Mandeb, whether now it be Straits of Hormuz and northern Middle East Gulf. I mean, if what is to stop an underwriter saying, do you know what? You can go up to Iraq to go and load crude oil, but it's going to cost you $1 million, Mr. Ship Owner. No, it's nothing anyone can do. And I think until the shipping industry, tankers specifically, of course, has clarity on what those costs are, I think we could really see a slowdown in loadings.
Well, I would say that war risk premium has been something that's been being paid in the Middle East for a while, especially going
Yeah,
into the middle. Because if everybody recalls, over the last 5 years, you had the limpet mine attacks. You had ships that were being harassed and arrested by Iranian IRGC for whatever reason.
yeah.
For violating Iranian waters, what have you. So there have been things that have kept war risk premiums insurance there for quite a while into the Middle East. Now, yes, is this going to see an escalation in that premium? Most likely, yes. And I think that's going to be an issue that shipping companies and people are going to have to deal with. And so when people say, can Iran shut the Straits of Hormuz? Physically, it's a very daunting task to try to accomplish. The last time they tried to do this was in the 1980s. Well, during the tanker war between Iran and Iraq, where both Iran and Iraq were basically shooting at each other's tankers and then started shooting at other people's tankers, just as a way to try to cripple the underlying economies of either nation while they're in their war. And it saw numerous ships get hit, various vessels spill cargo, and it prompted the Kuwaitis to reflag a bunch of ships under the U.S. flag in order to bring in the U.S. Navy to provide escort service to bring tankers out of the Persian Gulf and into the Persian
Yeah.
Gulf. So there always are going to be workarounds. Now, if Iran actually focused and actually tried to shut down the Straits of Hormuz, I think they'd be far more successful in shutting it down financially, i.e., making the war risk premium so much that nobody wants to spend that extra $1 million to take a cargo ship in just to go load a cargo of crude oil. What we probably will see, we'll probably see more utilization of some of the other outlets for crude. Hello? I think we just froze.
Have you frozen?
Yep, there you back. Oh, there you are. Okay.
Did you freeze? Was it me or you?
Well, I think it was either you or me. You froze on my screen, so I don't know if we froze both sides. So we do
Okay.
apologize. We don't have our editor in place, so that will
Yeah,
be
well,
part of
this is
this
real,
telegraph,
people.
unfortunately.
Yeah, exactly. But this is real. This is the thing is that, we're just two blokes who are talking about oil markets. We're not editors and producers, and we don't script anything. We talk as we go. But yeah, look, I mean, where I lost you was you said a financial shutdown. So go on, go on.
So making it where it becomes so financial unattainable to actually move a ship into the Middle East because the cost of your insurance has become astronomically high. So will we see more utilization of other export routes in order to keep oil flowing? Will we see Iraq come to an agreement with Turkey to allow more oil to flow through Seyhan versus what's been flowing recently? Will we see Saudi increase its exports out of the Red Sea? Will we see more exports out of the Gulf of Oman via Fujairah? That's probably the right response this time until you understand what's going to happen with insurance, and will Iran pull that trigger on trying to reduce vessel movements?
Yeah, look, and I think once the overreaction, the knee-jerk reaction was sort of priced in on Friday, you do come back down to the issues that oil markets were faced with in the first place. And my colleague Homayun came out with this, excuse me, early Friday morning. Israel attacks Iran, but it's sanctions that will cripple its oil flows, right? And let's bear in mind that all of that is still going on. So look, these are another four sort of market and trading calls that he's made, and I think that this is an important thing to look out as well. The Yask terminal, which bypasses the Straits of Hormuz, but it's very difficult. I think there's a million barrels a day pipeline that can go to avoid the Straits of Hormuz. I think Iranian production right now, let me get the numbers. I think, just bear with me. I think it's about 3.2 million barrels a day, something like that. But anyway, look, Yaski is going to be really important to see what happens there. As was cargo. I'll bring up the map in a moment. But look, I mean, like you said, I think the Straits of Hormuz. Obviously, you've transited as a mariner many times in the past. You're not talking like a canal. This is like a 90 mile wide stretch of water that's in Omani waters, right? They're sort of governor of those waters. Is that right?
Well, Oman and Iran both have claims over the water, but I think the Straits Transit Traffic Separation Scheme actually is in the Omanian part of the water, if I remember my international maps off the top of my head.
You're
But
okay.
nevertheless, yeah, it's a comparing Bab el Mandeb to Straits of Hormuz. Why were the Houthis able to put more pressure on the Straits of Bab el Mandeb? It's the fact that it is a very tight corridor in Bab el Mandeb for vessel
Right.
transits.
Okay. Look, let's
Um,
talk. Let's talk about it. So here we are down here. You guide us here,
so the
Captain.
Straits of Bab el Mandeb, which are between Yemen and Djibouti,
Right.
it's a very small, narrow body of water with a lot of islands in between, and
Right.
so it's a very distinct traffic separation scheme that travels through that region. And as you can see, it's a very tight corridor.
When you
Whereas if you
when you say tight, like what are we talking? Like, give us some context.
um, I'm going to say between some of we're talking 10 to 20 nautical miles, roughly.
Okay. To me is like it's like big, right? That's like quite wide. But in shipping terms, that's relatively tight. That's careful planning, and you have to you
Well, this is why you
concentrate and
have
really.
the international traffic separation schemes going through there because of all the um, islands and rocks that exist between these two land masses.
Okay. Okay. So this is like 10 to 12. So this is here really, Bab el Mandeb issues here. I mean, traffic is still fairly light. We'll get onto that next week because I hosted a webinar on freight last week with Maddie, and even though transits are picking up a little bit, it's still a lot lower than it always, historically has been. Okay, so this is where the issues have been, Houthi rebels, etc.
Just from that point of view, if you scroll down to that island, the island that's there in the straits, from that island to the coast of Djibouti, it's roughly 15 miles.
So this one here, this island here,
Yes,
Mayun.
from Ayoun Island to Djibouti, it's roughly 15 miles.
Okay, okay, okay. So let's put that. Okay,
Whereas
let's go back over the other side of the peninsula now. So, sorry if I'm going too fast and you're getting dizzy. Told you we're rough and ready here. Okay, so this is Straits of Hormuz here, right?
yes.
Okay, so this is me. Hello, Matty. Hello, and then this is UAE, and then this is Oman. This the top of the UAE. This here is land of Oman, and this is our Straits of Hormuz.
And
Yeah.
so if you take the northern tip of Oman to any
So
one of
yeah.
those points around Iran, you're basically 30 to 40 miles between point to point.
Okay.
So those islands like Kisham Island, Serek,
Okay. Yeah. Kesham's here.
yep,
Hormuz is here. And then obviously you go further around and then back into um, back into the Arabian Gulf, etc., and up into the
yes.
Persian.
So even if so that means that for Iran to really physically stop the flow of ships through there, they'd have to be shooting missiles at vessels that go through, very much like they did back in the 1980s. And then they'd hope that there'd be no response from the various navies that are in the region. U.S. Navy, UK Navy. I think even the French have some ships in the region. Um,
Right. Okay. This. I think this is for me as well. Like I said, should know more. 25 years in the industry, but I can't work out what. I don't even think Iran have said that we will look at shutting down the Straits of Hormuz. But what does it mean? You're talking about. And let me go back to sharing the screen just so people have got a visual aid about what it can mean. Okay. So here we are. This is Hormuz. This is the island of Hormuz here. Sorry, up here. Keshim Island is here. You're talking about there would have to be some like military deployment here, stopping any traffic crossing.
Well, I mean, you could easily use the land masses around Iran and use shore-based missiles to shoot at ships. I mean, that's something that can be done. The tactics that Iran has used in the past, they've used boat flotillas to harass vessels. They do have smaller Navy vessels that are equipped with missiles that can take out ships. I mean, kind of, if you look at your current chart here of the vessel traffics, those red vessels that are inbound to the Straits, you can see that's kind of like the northern extent of the traffic lane. And you have the green ships that are outbound. That's the
No,
southern extent of the traffic.
the,
No, not that one. The ones that are over by the tip of the peninsula, of the Omanian Peninsula.
here.
Yeah, so right there. So you can see that right there is kind of like the northern extent of the international traffic separation scheme that goes through the Straits of Hormuz.
Okay.
So from there, you're probably about 20 miles away from Iranian coast. And then it comes down south into off of Fujairah and Corsican and out to the Omanian Gulf of Oman.
Okay. Okay. It's interesting because here's Fujairah, right? This is the anchorage zone in Fujairah. And then this is the anchorage zone at Corsican. This is quite new to me, whether that's someone can pick up on it and comment, like, comment, subscribe, whatever. This seems like this is quite a busy sort of area of activity. Like another one, you know, okay, Fujairah's
Well,
already
highlight
been,
highlight some of those ships for a second. Are they moving?
uh, I don't want to get sued just in case someone's getting, are they moving? No, no, there's a lot of these that are not moving. You can see the speed there.
Yep.
So this is the Corfacan OPL, Corfacan outside port limits.
Yes. So you have your vessels that are basically just waiting.
Yeah, this seems pretty busy to me. I mean, you tell me, was that a
Well, again,
Corfacan OPL?
do you want to, so, there are shipping companies that have made announcements that they're not going to go into the Persian Gulf for the time being. And this could be the result, is what you're seeing, is ships that have been stopped from entering in until there's an idea of what exactly is going to happen. Because nobody wants to have a ship stuck or a ship getting hit. A new ship is $90 million to $100 million.
Yeah.
So it's a huge asset to put on risk.
I'm going to get some of the guys to have a look at that to see if we've seen, because obviously we can aggregate that as Corfacan OPL. I wonder if we've seen activity build up on that in the last 3 or 4 days. I'd imagine we probably have. Well, you heard it here first, people. Breaking news to you as the smoking barrel, but stealing other people's information and data. No, look, I mean, I think everyone's learning as they're going, and the fluidity of the situation. I mean, look, Brent's nearly traded negative on a day now, 74.30 up 7 cents. Structure's still really strong, but look, I mean, the situation is so fluid that people really don't. To me, it's also one of those situations where it's not like you can sort of lean on previous experience. Like it's a historical situation where you're going like, well, we've been in this position before. This is what happened. That's probably what will happen again. History repeats itself, I know, but I mean, don't you feel like the market is kind of like, okay, I think I'm just going to sit down and see what other people do before I do something next.
Well, I think if you're in this market, you have to take a wait and see approach. I mean, if you look at what's been happening on the financial markets, there's been a very large uptick in option buying.
Right.
So obviously, people are trying to protect their portfolios with an upside bias by buying options, which is probably a safe bet to make if you want to protect yourself from a potential price spike that could overrun your positions.
So that's why we saw the volumes we saw on Friday with some gamma kicking in, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if that's what you're doing, then okay, that's how you protect yourself. Then you need to kind of wait and see what happens because again, there's a lot of things that, as this is a fluid event and a fluid right, there'll be a lot of headlines that will come out as the attacks continue from both sides about, oh, this got hit, oh, that got hit, oh, what does that mean? What does this mean? And nevertheless, it could mean nothing. It could mean everything. There could be some red line that we're not aware of that Israel hits certain targets in Iran, and Iran says, "Okay, that's it. We're going full on." Conversely, there could be red lines with Israel where they say, "Oh, okay, they've hit this. We're now going to step it up even more." So, as there's a lot of uncertainty, it's kind of probably the best trade at the moment is no trade, and just kind of sit back and watch.
Yeah, which is probably why Brent is clinging on to $75 a barrel. It's just sort of next move up, right? In a linear way across barrel. Look, let me ask you then, what do you think ex third parties who love to get involved, Trump? Um, what do you think what do you think his next move is? Do you think he's a wait and see, or what do you
Well,
think that is?
so on the broader scope, you have the G7 kicking off today in Canada.
Yeah.
And obviously, the whole conversation there is probably shifted around from what was originally going to be discussed, which, there was talks of increasing sanction or reducing the price cap on Iranian, on Russian oil,
Mm.
was one of the topics to be discussed during the G7 summit. My guess is that's probably been put to the back burner because nobody wants to do anything to inflate oil prices more by increasing the price cap on Russian oil. So I think
That's that's really interesting because we spoke about this last week, and I mean, a week, oil is negative on the day. Um, yeah, that was also one of our leading discussion points last week, wasn't it? Was G7 going to get a Russian oil cap's going to be dropped to say 45, and then a week later you see another market event like this Iran-Israel escalation, and I think you're right. I think it will be acknowledged, but I think it won't be a sort of laboured point. And it's amazing how quick things can turn.
yeah, no, it's a turn on the dime. I mean, so my guess is you'll probably have more talk of trying to de-escalate. Although I think in the of the G7 nations, I want to say half of them have come out and supporting Israel's right to do what they're doing. The other half have said, this was a unprecedented strike and should be curtailed. So there will be those internal politics that will be discussed as to what exactly is going to be the next step response from the G7 members to all this. Zelensky is going to be attending the G7 meeting in Canada, and I'm sure he's there to try to make sure he still gets his assistance that he's been asking for, and they don't
Yeah.
pull assets away from Ukraine to support Israel.
Yeah, the UAE president is there as well. His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed. He's been invited, as has Modi. And I think, this was obviously planned months before, right? He's not just going to say, "Oh, he didn't just get a WhatsApp Friday night. Hello, mate, are you up to fancy a trip to
Come to
Quebec or wherever
Canada?
it is?" Yeah,
Do you
he'll
want to
come
come
and,
to
oh yeah, I'm
Alberta
not
for the
doing much
States?
actually. Yeah, let me just go on a travel perk and book a flight. No, these things are planned, but I think, the focus would be, Middle East tensions. There are obviously going to be, questions his way, but the UAE are very good at being diplomatic and what's going on within the region. Yeah, look, I mean, tomorrow we might have to record another episode. There might be something else that happens, but we do try and report on the facts, and that's why I leverage the Kepler data. We both value their support in allowing us to do that on this podcast. But shit, I mean, $74 on Brent, Iran attacking Israel, Russia attacking Ukraine, Bab Deb attacking the Houthis attacking that. It's a lot to keep up with, isn't it?
It is, but that's why I think you have to have cooler heads. And again, as we're in the summer, if you're trying to trade this market, you might be better off just taking summer vacation now.
Which I think a lot of people in the UAE have done already. That we had Eid al-Adha, and then I think everyone just went, you know what? I prefer southern France than I do the Middle East. But anyway, look, we'll wait and see. As always, like, comment, subscribe. We've got others going on. Let us know if you like the content. We really appreciate the feedback, don't we?
Yep, and catch us on Spotify, on LinkedIn, and on YouTube. And stay safe and stay out of harm's way if possible.
Ciao.